Hi, third graders. Today we're going to continue working on our biography essays. Our goals for this week are to write a 5 paragraph essay, use your notes to help you write those full paragraphs, also use the texts, the books, the articles that you read, and the video you watched to help you have enough information, and use a daily checklist to go over each paragraph. Our goals for reading today are to sequence our notes, put them in chronological time order. We're going to write the childhood paragraph, and then we're going to use the checklist to make sure it's our best work. Sequencing our notes. So you've been reading a lot of biographies of important people. Have you noticed something about how all the texts are organized? All of the texts have the same structure. They are in chronological order. So after a short introduction that usually tells the person's greatest accomplishment, the author then goes back and tells the events of a person's life in time order. What happened first? What happened next? Your essay is going to be organized in the same way, which makes sense when you think about it. A biography is the story of someone's life. So it should be in time order of their life. So we need to go back to our notes and put them in chronological order. There's 2 ways to do this. The first way is to just type a number right onto your notes, and I'll show you that first. While you're doing this, you may need to check back to your sources. So our sources are this book about Cesar Chavez and this article about Cesar Chavez. You have 2, and then also the video. You have 2 sources assigned to you in Google Classroom from last week, and you should definitely be looking back in them to double check or add more information or to get some exact dates. Mrs. Seaver is going to talk to you about finding exact dates tomorrow. So here we have the introduction. This is that same structure, talking about his greatest accomplishment, giving a little bit of background info, and then it goes back and starts at his birthday when he was born as the first thing in the timeline of the book. Some of the books that you read may also have a timeline at the end, which can be really helpful to sequencing your notes. All right, let's go back to these notes and put them in order. Okay, so he was born in 1927. That's the first thing that happened. And his social identity was Latino because he had Mexican-American heritage. Because remember, Latino means someone who has heritage from Mexico, Central America, or parts of South America. So that was true as soon as he was born. So that's number 2. Next, he grew up in poverty. He was very poor. Yesterday, Mrs. Armstrong talked to you about the Great Depression. Many people lost their jobs. Cesar Chavez's family lost their farm and they had to move. And because of that, they became migrant farm workers. So that's number 4. Also, his family moved around so much that he guessed he'd gone to 65 different schools. And then finally, he left school after 8th grade to help his family. So that's number 6. Okay, so that's the first way you can sequence your notes. Just type the number at the end of each line in your notes. The other way is you can move your notes around. So you're going to use the Control key and the C key, which is actually copy, not cut, and then Control and V for paste. Okay, so we're going to go over here to the notes slides, and we're going to move some things around. So he was born in Arizona. And then we said our second one was that he was Latino. So how you do this is you click on the end where you want to move, you highlight it all, and then click Control C, which will copy it. Then you can click up where you want to move it to and hold down the Control key and the V key, and it will move it up there. I think it's better to copy and paste and then go back and delete what you had before, because that way you don't lose anything. Okay. Latino grew up in poverty, worked as a migrant farm worker. His family moved around a lot, and he quit school after 8th grade. All right. I also want to move some of these details around so that they're grouped in a way that makes a little more sense. So he was Latino, which meant he had Mexican-American heritage, but that wasn't about speaking Spanish at home and English at school. So I'm going to highlight that, Control C to copy it, and I'm going to put that with the school's detail because those are related. They go together. So I'm going to hit Control V and paste it there. And then go back and delete. And then he quit school after 8th grade to go to work for full time to help his family. He didn't quit because school was hard. He quit because he needed to help his parents earn money to pay for food and lodging for their family. So Control C, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to move it up here with schools. Control V, paste. And keep this right here. So it's a good idea to do this because now you're an expert. You're becoming an expert on this person that you've studied. And so you have a much deeper understanding of all these details in their life. So it can be really interesting and satisfying to kind of reorganize your notes before you start to write your paragraphs because you now have a much better understanding of the details of the person's life. All right, let's get to writing. Okay, we have our notes in order. Before it's time to write, we want to spend some time with our notes, which we just did, and then you also want to reread your write long that you did last week. Okay, because a lot of the ideas in here are going to show up in your paragraphs. I'm not going to read these out loud right now, but you need to go back and read your write long 2 questions to help you get ready. You also need to reread the introduction. Rereading the introduction and the writing long will help you prepare to write your paragraphs. Okay, so it's almost time to start our first paragraph. Let's just do a quick review of the parts of a paragraph. So I like to tell my class that first, when you're writing a paragraph, you tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell the reader what the main idea is going to be. Then you tell them. That's the body of the paragraph, all the details, examples, evidence. And then you tell them what you told them. You just tell them again what you just told them in the tell them part. Okay, so another way to say this is the topic sentence that tells the main idea and tells what the entire paragraph will be about without any details. The body sentences give all those details, examples, and facts. And then the conclusion sentence wraps up the paragraph. It restates the main idea. Just like the topic sentence said the main idea, the conclusion sentence is the main idea too. It doesn't include any details, and it might connect to the next paragraph. All right, here's our paragraph checklist for the childhood paragraph. Topic sentence, at least 2 important events in the person's childhood, events in chronological order, and connecting the idea of how did those childhood events influence the person's greatest accomplishment. You don't need to say the greatest accomplishment, you need to make the connection. And then has a conclusion sentence. So here we go. Topic sentence. We need to tell the main idea of the entire childhood paragraph without any details. Looking back at my notes, he grew up in poverty, a migrant farm worker, he moved around, school was hard, he quit school. That's all really difficult things. So I'm going to write my topic sentence that Cesar Chavez had a difficult childhood. I don't have any details in there, and I'm telling the main idea of the whole paragraph. Now I need at least 2 important events from the person's childhood. Over here in my notes, I've just listed things in note form, which is good, they're notes. But when I write my paragraph, I want to write fluent sentences that are connected and interesting and sound good. So here are my 4 sentences. I wrote them in note form just so you can see that there's 4, but I hope you'll notice that these are not just notes turned into a complete sentence, and they're also not notes. So during the Great Depression, Cesar's family lost their jobs. That came from growing up in poverty. He was very poor. They had to move to California to work as migrant farm workers, moving from town to town to pick whatever crops were ripe. That connects over here to, in my notes, growing up in poverty, working as a migrant farm worker. In the field, Cesar and other farm workers suffered through long days in the sun without water breaks and working for very low pay. And Cesar went to dozens of different schools growing up. So I hope you can see how all of these sentences are connected to my notes. I got the information straight from my notes, and I turned them into fluent sentences. All right, let's check and see. Did we list these events in chronological order? Lost their jobs, moved, had to work hard. It was very difficult, and went to many different schools. Yes, they're in time order, and I can check that also with the numbers that I wrote on my notes. All right. It should mention how childhood events influence the person's greatest accomplishment, but it doesn't need to say the greatest accomplishment. So I have 2 sentences that are going to do that. The hardships he experienced motivated him to do important things in his adult life, and these many hard experiences inspired Cesar to work towards change as an adult. So it's kind of hinting at all these difficult, hard times that he had as a child are connected to his work as an adult. It doesn't say what that greatest accomplishment is, but we know it's making better working conditions for farm workers. All right, my conclusion sentence needs to wrap it up, restate that main idea. These many hard experiences inspired Cesar to work towards change as an adult. So my whole paragraph was about hard experiences of Cesar when he was a child, and I have a little connection here to my next paragraph. So want to see it all together? Here it is. So you can see how this really connects to my notes. So you want to be looking back at your notes very frequently while you're writing. Cesar Chavez had a difficult childhood. The hardships he experienced motivated him to do important things in his adult life. During the Great Depression, Cesar's family lost their jobs. They had to move to California to work as migrant farm workers, moving from town to town to pick whatever crops were ripe. In the field, Cesar and other farm workers suffered through long days in the sun without water breaks and working for very low pay. Cesar went to dozens of different schools growing up. These many hard experiences inspired Cesar to work towards change as an adult. Okay, so here's your checklist again. You want to make sure that you have all these things in your childhood paragraph, and you want to make sure you're checking back to your notes and possibly the sources, the books and articles that you read. Okay, so your job for today, watch my video, which you're watching right now. Sequence your notes, putting them in time order. Review your notes, those 2 questions that you wrote long about, and your introduction to get ready to write your paragraph. Write your paragraph, and then use that checklist on slide 16 to make sure you've included everything that's needed. Okay? All right. So you've been working so hard on your notes and you're writing along in your introduction. Today you're writing your first body paragraph of your essay. Good luck, work hard, and your teachers are really excited to read what you write.